All right, so today we're going to begin the process of building our clay houses. The way to do that is to first start off with a paper template. That way we know exactly where and how to cut our clay out. So what we'll end up with is something like this, a paper house that actually is able to be connected and stand on its own. But before we get there, we need to start off with the paper. The first step is, of course, working on our floor. For my house, I started with a 3x3 floor. So I take my ruler, I put it down so the edge of it's flush with the edge of my paper, and I go over to 1, 2, 3, and I make a dot. And then, since I have a square bottom, I put the 3 at the very edge of my paper, then I go to the edge of my ruler and I make a dot. That way I have a dot at 3 inches up and 3 inches over. I also then take my ruler, make sure the edge of it is flush with the bottom of my paper and the dot, and go up to 3 again and make another dot. Now I connect the dots this way, and I connect the dots across. This way I have a 3-inch by 3-inch square. And I mark that, and I'm going to write floor on it just so I don't forget later on. And since I already have 3 inches measured out, I'm not going to waste that measurement because I know that each of my sides has to be 3 inches wide. So I'm going to keep that going. I know that my sides are 3.5 inches tall, so 3 inches plus 3.5 is 6.5. So I go up to 6.5 and I make a mark. And I move my ruler over to the edge of the paper, flush with the bottom. And again, I find 6.5 and I make a mark. Then I turn my ruler, make a straight line across and down to go to 6.5. So now I have my side, my floor, and this is 3 inches and 3.5 inches. Next, I'm going to make my other side over here. So again, I put that 3-inch mark at the edge of my paper, and then at the edge of my ruler, make a dot. I turn the edge of my ruler to the bottom of my paper and count up 1, 2, 3, and make a, 3.5, and make a dot. Because remember, we're going 3 inches by 3.5 inches. So I go back to my original dot, make my ruler flush, go up 1, 2, 3.5, and make a dot. Make a dot, turn my ruler, and connect the lines. Connect the lines down. So now I have 2 sides. But there are still 2 pesky sides to worry about. I have to now think about the 2 sides that have the pitch to hold the roof. I know that they're also going to be a 3-inch bottom, but I know because I measured it beforehand that the top height is 5.5 inches. So that means that this side goes up to 3.5 inches, and then the rise of my roof is 2 inches further, which once you do the math, we'll talk about the slope, but that's in a moment. So if I add the 3.5 inches onto the 3.5 inches here, I'll take this line up to 7 inches. So 3.5 plus 3.5 is up to 7 inches, and I make my line, I'm sorry, that's a little bit off, to 7 inches at 3 inches. Then here's the thing, I need to make the pitch of my roof, and the pitch of my roof should be halfway in between. So since I know this is 3 inches wide, halfway in between would be at 1.5 inches. So I make a mark at 1.5 inch. I turn my ruler, and I measure 2 inches up from 1.5. So I go up to the 2, and this point is going to be the highest point of my house. Now I just take my ruler and I connect the line, I use it to draw a straight line connecting the dot to the side of my house and the dot to the edge of my paper. Now, for those of us who really want to do the math on this, now we know that we have two right triangles. We have a right triangle with the side of 1.5 and the side of 2. And we know that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So a squared plus b squared equals to c squared, or 6.25. The square root of that is roughly 2.5. So we know that this side is roughly 2.5 inches. This is 3.5 inches, and this is 3 inches. This is a side, and this is a side. This is 3 inches and 3.5 inches. Last, we need to make our other side. So we're going to turn our paper, and again, for the last time, we're going to measure 3 inches across. So we count 1, 2, 3, and make a dot. Then we turn our ruler, keeping the edge equal with the side of our paper, so we get a straight line. Whoa! And we count to 1, 2, 3, and 1/2, and make another dot. And make a straight line down. We turn our ruler, and we measure to 1.5. We make a dot, and then measure 2 inches up from that point. It's okay. Now we take that point and connect it with our side. It should be roughly 2.5 inches. That'll be important later on, but we don't necessarily need to know that just a second. Now we have the rough pieces of our house. We should cut these out so we can put them together. Now that we have them cut out, right over here, we should lay them out with our floor in the center and our walls on opposite sides. And our pitched roofs on opposite sides as well. Whoa! Oh, these are so slidey. Now that we have them laid out, we can simply use some tape, masking tape, some sort of adhesive to put them together to stand into our 3D sculpture. Now that I can see that as a 3D sculpture, it sits together, and I have my measurements recorded on it for future reference. I even have the words floor or side put on it. I'm ready to take apart my sculpture and begin to cut it out of clay.